Hey, what's up? Tim Krupp coming to you here today from the Move B studio. This is our very first podcast. I'm calling it the 330% podcast because we're here in the 330 area code. Today I have with me Bryson and Maria Kirby. They're from the Elliott Group. They've been here all day doing a sales training with us. It has been absolutely fantastic. It is so good to have you guys on the show. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being on my podcast as well. Today we're going to talk a little bit about their story. We're going to talk a little bit about self-improvement and how people can change and how it doesn't necessarily take a lifetime to change to become your future self now. So you guys met a guy named Andy Elliott, who you now work for, about a year and a half or 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Year and a half, yeah.
Yeah, and you went to an event,
Yeah.
One of his events, and it was like you guys scraped up your last $10,000. You spent $10,000, right?
Yeah.
And it's like all you had.
Mm-hmm.
You had a house payment and probably some car payments or whatever, and you used your last $10,000 to go to an event and meet Andy Elliott, right? And that was like basically it's become like a life-changing thing for you, right? So tell me a little bit about this story.
Yeah. Well, in order to kind of tell you about that story, I feel like we kind of have to back it up a little bit.
Okay.
You know, so Bryson and I have been together for 10 years. We've been together since we were 16. We're 27 now.
Okay.
So we've been together a long time. So we kind of had to grow up together. And I would say, as far as defining what success is early on, which I know in your story, you had quite a bit of early success. You know, we came from North Carolina. We were 24 years old. We had bought the $500,000 house. We're making $200,000 a year. And we got real comfortable in life because we came from poor families. And in North Carolina, for any of my friends out there that live in North Carolina, cost of living is really low. You know, so if you're making $200,000 a year, you're making something to yourself. You know, people are like, you can't hide money, and you've got all these things. So we had the house, the car, we had, you know, the 401k accounts, we had the W-2 jobs, and about, 2 years into, I guess, us owning a home, that's whenever Bryson started sales. And I was definitely delayed on this kind of self-development journey. He was on it first, which to me is a really good example of how leading from the front, even within your family dynamic, is so important. Because if it wasn't for him leading from the front, being like, I'm gonna do this anyways, like I'm gonna self-develop anyways, I would have never had the courage myself to start making some of those moves. So with that said, we kind of went through this journey of getting comfortable. We were drinking all the time, we're partying all the time. Our house was like a frat house. People would come in and party all the time. You'd walk in our front living room. We have a nice pool table. We've got darts up on the wall, big screen TVs. We even installed bar stools. Like it was laid out like it was that kind of a style. And so people would come over and party all the time. But I'd say for the last year before we actually met Andy is when we kind of started on this self-development journey. And that was when we lost a lot of our friends, And a lot of them were just like, oh, you guys don't hang out. You guys have changed. And honestly, it just kind of got to a point where we were ready to change.
Okay.
We had a party one time that made us really wake up. And from that experience, it was just like, what are we doing? Like we're literally trying to turn into our parents. And I come from a lot of drug addiction, a lot of alcoholism. That's just how I grew up. And I felt like I'm gonna turn into my dad. We've got to change. And it was literally that instant decision of just like, we're gonna change and grow, that we kind of started on this self-development journey. We wanted to learn how to make more money. He got into sales, which was scary. For a lot of people who get into sales, they're like, oh, it's super scary, it's not guaranteed, and it's like either you're gonna bet on you and you're gonna acquire the skill that you need, or you're gonna stay in your 9-to-5 job and you're gonna make X amount of dollars an hour, and you're gonna let big man tell you how much your time is worth. And so from there, we just kind of took that, and it took us a year to like gain that courage just to go all in and make that first jump into flying out to Vegas for the first time. Mind you, we had no idea who Andy Elliott was.
Yeah, we weren't even going to see Andy. We were going to see Brad Lee. I was a big Brad Lee follower, and I listened to every single podcast that he dropped. Shout out Dropping Bombs. And need to have Tim on, by the way. And so I heard this one episode, and Brad was talking about Closer School Live, and I literally sent it to Maria that day, and I was like, babe, I want to go to this event. And Andy wasn't even involved with that event. And just the way that it works out, we ended up spending all of our money. Maria calls me back like later that same day, and she's like, hey, I know you were kind of unsure about going, but we're going anyway. I literally spent all of our money on the best tickets that they had, and it's non-refundable. I was like, okay. So she just dropped like 10 grand on tickets. I mean, like, mind you, we've never done this before. We've never been to an event. We've never like really dove into self-improvement or anything like that. And other than just like going to the gym and listening to the podcast, that was like our extent of it. And so this was like our first big step. And yeah, she literally spent all of our money, and it was super stressful, but also really exciting at the same time. Because we just had this belief that it's like, if you know how to make money, then like you can always go make it back. And so we were like, screw it, we're going all in on this. And we both literally said the same thing. We were like, if we just get one piece of information from this event, then we won, you know? And I think that just goes back to having the right mindset. So yeah, we go to this event, we listen to Andy speak. He ended up filling in for someone that got booted out of the event like right last minute. And it was a life-changing opportunity, because after hearing him speak for an hour, we were like, this is the guy that we need to learn from. And so he had an offer at the event for some private coaching. We had no money at all. I told Maria I wanted to do the private coaching, and literally called my bank. They give me a loan over the phone, pay for the coaching, and just that series of events, it literally changed everything for us.
Yeah, and I get asked a lot. There's like this turning point that happens. They're like, what was the triggering point for you to just make that decision without him? And I remember we're arguing back and forth, right? I'm standing in the hallway, and we're going back and forth, and I'm like, Bryson, we can become millionaires by the time we're 30. I was like, we're gonna become millionaires by the time we're 30. Like, I was convinced. And we're arguing back and forth, and he's like, what does that mean? Like, how are we even gonna get there? I'm like, I don't know, but like, I know we're gonna be millionaires. And I was convinced that I was gonna be a millionaire by 30. And I'm gonna be a millionaire by 30. And so, as we're arguing back and forth, the same time frame was when these tickets came about. And to me, in my head, I just thought, that's how we're gonna do it. Like, we were sold on self-development, but I was so sold that we needed to get out from where we were at, and that we had to go find our way to make $1 million, because there was no way in the opportunity, we were in the wrong vehicle. There was no way in what we were doing were we ever gonna be able to make $1 million. It's just, it wasn't set up the right way. We weren't there. And so that's how, like, that was really what my thought process was like, if we can get out there and learn one thing, maybe this is the thing that can show me how we're gonna make $1 million, because I know we can do it. And that moment was the moment that he was sold. He's like, we got there and learned, and he was like, all right, I know how we're gonna make $1 million. We needed a new vehicle. And we actually kind of started into like a life insurance journey before we were gonna transition over, we were gonna start selling life insurance. And as we were making that transition was when Andy called about a month after that event. And he was like, you don't wanna go do that. I want you to come work for me. And that's what he told Bryson. And he was like, all right, we'll do that instead. And then even more so, like, he kind of believed with insurance, but then it was like, once he got that opportunity from Andy, he 100% was like, this is the vehicle that we needed. We're definitely making $1 million now.
So Bryson, tell me the story again about after the event, right? You hear Andy Elliott speak. You didn't even expect that he was going to be there. Your floor blown away. You're like, this guy has like answers that I need in life, and like I want to coach with this guy. So you go up to him. Tell me about that exchange. What did that conversation sound like? Yeah,
so because of the tickets that Maria had purchased, I was like, my chair was as close to the stage as you could get. It was literally right like at the bottom of the stairs where they walk off stage. And so after Andy finished speaking, I just beelined it to the bottom of the stairs. And it's a room full of like 500 or 600 people, and they're all coming up to talk with Andy, and I'm like at the front of the line basically. And I expected, like anyone else that you would imagine coming off of stage or whatever, like it would be very short and sweet, like just like, hey, what's your name? Awesome to meet you, and then boom, on to the next person. Well, that was not at all how Andy was, and I think that's the thing that stood out to me the most, was he actually gave me like attention. He gave me the time of day to have a conversation with him. And literally, I walk up to him and I was like, Andy, literally 24 hours ago, I didn't even know that you existed. I had never seen your content before. And I was like, after hearing you speak, I was like, you're the guy that I need to learn from. And literally, like the first thing out of his mouth, he was like, what's your problem? That was the first thing he asked me. And it caught me off guard because I was like, okay, I've never been asked that, like just so bluntly. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, what's your problem? Something's holding you back. I can see it in your eyes. Like, what is it? And the first thing I thought of off the top of my head was, I smoke pot every day. So that was what came out of my mouth. I was like, I smoke weed every day. And he was like, cut that shit out. And I was like, okay. And he was like, are you going to commit to that? Because if I'm going to coach you, I need to know that you're going to commit to that. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. I was like, whatever it takes, like, I'll quit. And I don't think she really believed me in that conversation, because she had tried to get me to stop a few times, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll stop, and I just never did. And so literally we went back home.
But tell him the second part. What else did he say?
Oh yeah, shout out all my guys out there. You're gonna like this one. But then he looked at Maria and he was like, and you know what you're gonna do every day? And he was like, what's that? Maria was like, what's that? And he was like, you're gonna have sex every day. And my eyes lit up. I was like, what? I was like, this is like what I've been asking for.
This is like 45 seconds into
Literally,
yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Literally. And he was like, I can see it. You guys aren't close enough. Y'all need to have sex every day. And I was like, I'm sold, like done.
Yeah.
Screw pot. And then, so I would say that had like a massive turning point in our relationship.
And the truth was we weren't close.
Yeah.
Which is, a lot of people don't want to talk about this stuff, but the truth really is that we weren't close. We had such a divide, and we'd been together for so long that we just kind of started living together. It was almost like being roommates, you know? And we realized in that moment when he mentioned that, he was like, dang, he can literally see right through our bullshit. He may have been assuming, but I'm almost like, I think Andy's like the next like Messiah or something. Like he just knows things. It was the craziest thing ever. And that was the truth. And we had to learn, basically had to like relearn. When you're with somebody for 10 years, you forget, you know, and you realize after 10 years you're not the same people. You have to relearn how to love each other. You have to relearn how to connect on another level, and what your interests change, your passions change, and either you have to get together on the same page as that and continue to grow together, or you will grow apart.
Yeah. Andy's so good at reading people, and you know he says it all the time that like the world right now is just starving for leaders, right? It's starving people. You were looking for somebody to look up to, right? Somebody who's setting an example, who's out there, who's crushing it, and we naturally gravitate towards those people, right? Setting the example of what can be done. Now, when he hired you guys or asked you to come out to Scottsdale and to work with him, so you guys literally, like, you owned a house and everything. You had to like sell your house and like pack up and move across the country, and you did this in like pretty short order, right?
Yeah, so the other cool thing, going back to just how Andy treated the whole entire like initial conversation. So after we talked about all that, talked about not smoking and having sex and all this stuff, he literally pulls out his cell phone out of his pocket. And he said, what's your number? And I told him, and he typed it in his phone. And he was like, what's Maria's number? And he typed it in his phone. And then he started a group chat right there with Maria and I, his wife, Jackie, and himself. And he was like, this is gonna be your accountability group chat. Wow. And he said, anytime you think about smoking, I want you to text the group chat. Like, he was trying to help me out. And then he was like, and then I'm gonna call Maria and I'm gonna tell her to go punch you in the face because you're an idiot. And I was like, okay, cool. So we literally started this group chat, and then like, after that event, like a week went by, and I would text the chat, and I was like, hey Andy, it's been a week, just want to tell you again, like, thank you for everything, blah blah blah, I feel great. Well, I did that every week until it got to a month after the event, and I told him, I was like, dude, today's a month since the last time I smoked, like, I owe you everything, I feel so great, my head's clear, my body feels awesome, whatever, like, I'm on fire at work. And then he called me, and I didn't realize it at the time, but he was like basically like testing me. Like, was I actually gonna commit to what I told him? And he called me, he was like, you know, I've been watching you. And that's when he had that conversation. He was like, I know you're not happy doing what you're doing. That's why you're considering getting into insurance. And he was like, I can tell you, like, you don't want to do insurance. And I was like, okay. And he was like, why don't you come work with me? And I was like, what? And he was like, dude, I didn't freaking stutter. Like, why don't you come work with me? And I was like, I would love that. What does that even mean? And he was like, well, you need to move to Scottsdale. And he was like, most people, when they're like in the moment, they'll commit to a lot of stuff, but then when they get back in their real life, they fall right back to what they were doing. And he was like, the fact that you stuck to what you told me, he was like, that tells me like you're a certain type of person, and you're the type of person I want on my team. And he was like, clearly you know something about sales, because I know the investment that you made throughout that weekend, like the money that you guys spent. And he was like, but I know if I have a guy like you, like I can turn you into a killer. And I was like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, he saw that you had certain qualities, right? And the qualities are really what we need because everything else can be taught.
Yeah.
Right? If you're willing to change and you're willing to adapt and you're willing to go like 100%, like it's like we can work with that. We can work with a person like that. So when you guys first moved out there, really you were the one that was hired, right? So Maria wasn't necessarily hired yet.
No.
So what did that look like? How did we get her? And now she's like an absolute killer,
She's
right?
a beast.
So okay, so tell me about that.
So I want to start just because I'd been pressing Maria for a while to get into sales. Like this was before Andy, before going out to the event, because I saw the success that I was having, and I'm not lazy by no means, but I find that I'm naturally good at a lot of things. And so I had never sold before, and like without a coach, without a mentor, going to a company that had zero processes or anything in place, like I was the first sales rep for this company, and I made almost 200 grand my first year. And so like, again, like I just love people, I care about people, and at 24 years old with no experience, I knew, I was like, if Maria got into this, like she would freaking kill it, because she has the type of personality where if she doesn't know something, she will literally kill herself learning about it until she becomes like the best at it. And she did it literally in every job that she's had. When she sold appliances at Lowe's Hardware, which isn't really selling, like you're just an order taker, she outsold the guy that had been there for like 25 years. That's all he had freaking done. And then when she worked at Starbucks, like she was the most unqualified person to be a store manager, and she like worked her way up to be a store manager in like 3 months. When she became a vet tech, she had none of the credentials needed to be a vet tech, but they hired her, and she became the best person in their freaking office, like in no time. So I knew, I was like, because of one, growing up with her literally, and just knowing like how she operated, I was like, babe, I'm telling you, if you had an opportunity like sales, you will take off. And we didn't get that opportunity before moving out to Arizona, and then when she realized, because she did insurance for about 3 months, and she did fairly well for it, especially like not ever selling anything before, and then she came to me and she was like, I want to work with you. And I was like, that's not my call. You know who you got to talk to. And so like, and then I'll let you go from here.
Well, no, I just kept saying, I was like, I don't want to work in the basement. Like, I don't want to be in the basement, because all the action was happening upstairs. And I remember just thinking, how can I get in here? How can I get in here? And you have to show almost Andy to like open his eyes. And we had an event. I wasn't working with the LA group yet.
It was our first weekend in Arizona.
It was our first weekend in Arizona.
We were there for like 5 days.
Yeah, it was hot. We had our first event. And at our events, we always do a workout before, and we do this thing called a mountain run. And the mountain run's pretty tough. And especially in September, for anyone who doesn't live in Arizona, it is hot as hell in September, all right? So we're running up and down, we go to this mountain. It's not very far, but it's like with the no humidity and the heat and everything. So we go up and down this mountain, or I go up and down, up and down. So I'm literally like grabbing people because it's so hot, and there's some people that are running this thing that should not be running it. Like, we can't have anyone dying out here, right? So I'm going back and forth, and we're going through this mountain run. We're grabbing people, and I'm just bringing them back up, and then I'm running back down the mountain to be able to go grab more people to get them up the rest of the way to where they can get to like the easier portion. And I remember the first person the last person, her name was Moen. And she was the last person, and I went through that entire last round with Moen the whole way there. And she pushed so hard. Like, I was so proud of this girl. So we get through the whole entire thing. I've gone up and down, and then after every single mountain run, we do a body weight workout. And we're going through this body weight workout, and we get all the way to the end, and we're doing burpees. And that last burpee, we stand up, we call it, I pass out, I hit my head on the concrete, and I start seizing. I had completely like exhausted and overheated myself, literally. So they call 911. I'm like, and thankfully we had like some military personnel in there to where they had some medical background, because I like just blacked out. And then I remember like waking up and everyone's like surrounding me, and I'm like shaking, and I'm just like, what the heck is happening right now? So I finally cool down. They call 911. I'm good now. I've cooled down, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to go to a hospital. And literally the next day, Andy hired me, and he was like, anybody psychotic enough to push that far needs to be on my team.
You impressed him.
Yeah, and he knows now, because since then there's been a couple other things, because they know I will keep going until I literally pass out. I know what my limit is, and I know when it's coming, and even after that, they'll put me in these like burpee competitions and stuff, and they'll like, I just won't stop. And now they've gotten to a point where they can see it. Like the last time they put me in this competition, Jackie called it. She's like, okay, we're good, because they know I won't. I will keep going until my body just cannot go anymore. I'm that crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you first came to work for the Elliott Group, they put you in sales, right?
Yeah.
So you were a little bit shy. I've seen a couple videos. I saw one video where Andy is asking you to repeat some stuff after him about like I'm not shy, I'm not to kind of like believe that or whatever. But talk about the journey of like how did you go in such a short period of time from being somebody at the Elliott Group, they call it like mousy, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of like a little bit shy, a little bit reserved, to being somebody that is more of like an extrovert and not you seem pretty fearless when it comes to people at this point.
Yeah, so when we started, I think the biggest thing was that the pressure was on. There was so much pressure because this is part of the story that a lot of people don't know, but we didn't intentionally sell our house. We almost lost our house. We had no money. So when we started with the Elliott Group, Jackie said, you guys are going to get in here and you're not going to make any money. And we were like, that's fine. One thing that Bryce and I for years have been really good at is figuring it out. We've always figured it out no matter what. So when we came in, I told her, I was like, doesn't matter, we're going to figure it out. Even though I wasn't good, I was super quiet, and I was scared, honestly. It was a scary time. But it was to the point too where like we would literally, when seminars would come, they'd do fridge clean out, right? And when they would do fridge clean out, there's a lot of good food and they would throw it away. Well, we didn't have any food at home. So we would literally wait until they did fridge clean out, and Bryce and I would wait till the end of the day when everybody was gone. And I'd say, don't worry, we'll stay back. We'll make sure the food gets thrown away. I would pack the food up into our car and take it back to our apartment so we had food to eat. It was to the point that like we didn't even have rent one month, and I had to ask for a loan to pay for rent because we weren't making enough money. But that's also where like persistence comes in, and you're dedicated to what you're doing, because we knew no matter what, if we could just get one more skill, have one more conversation, read one more book, watch one more podcast, go through one more training, practice one more time, like like Ed Milet says, the power of one more. We're like, we know we can make it through this. And it sucked. Like it was so embarrassing.
And Andy believed in us.
And yeah, having somebody there that believed in you is like, well, we can't let Andy down, but we also don't want to let ourselves down. Like, could imagine what it would be like if we went back. We would be the freaking laughing stock of the town, and we were in a small town, So with that said, just decided, I was super shy. And I was really scared, and we were going through a really rough time. And in that moment that Andy did that, we had been there for probably like 3 or 4 months. We were there.
Like 2. Yeah, it was fairly new.
It was really new.
Yeah.
And he was like, say you're not scared. And I was like, I'm scared. I am so scared.
I'm scared.
Yeah, that was my first response. I was like, I'm so scared. He was like, no, you're not. You're not scared. He was like, you're not scared. And I'm like, but I am, but it's fine. So I was like, okay, I'm not scared. Okay. And he just leaned so hard, and he was like, you're gonna roar in front of our entire team.
And was everybody like there?
Everybody was there. You can't see it, in the video.
And Andy's office.
And
it felt like people were watching though.
But there was like 30 people in front of me watching.
And this just happened organically? It wasn't like staged?
No, he was like, he just got up from his desk. He's like, I'm sick and tired of this. Maria, come here.
Well, she was being like frumpy around the office because like she wasn't closing deals. And
yeah, so I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So this was random. He literally grabs me from my desk, brings me in the office, and he's like, team meeting, and brings everybody into the office.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there like, oh my God, what's about to happen, Yeah. It was like some Tony Robbins shit, seriously. And so he was like, he goes through this whole thing, saying you're not scared. I'm like, freaking scared. And I'm like, okay, I'm not scared. And he's like, you're gonna roar as loud as you can. I was like, oh God.
She's like in tears.
I'm literally in tears. I'm just so scared. And then something in that moment, and in the video you don't see it happening because it's just like this internal thing that's happening. But I was like, he literally broke like a shell from around my heart. Like I just remember in that moment I couldn't help but like tears were falling down. I just couldn't help it. I was like, I just broke into a million pieces in a good way. And then from that point, it's like, because I broke, I could be reformed into something else. And that's what he allowed me to do. And a lot of people won't understand that. But for me, that is what it felt like. And I got a whole new level of confidence. And he will tell you, she's never been the same since. The level of confidence that situation gave me, and being so broken and like our back was so far against the wall, that I was just ready. We were so ready for an opportunity. We really were. And I think you have to be ready for it. Andy says this a lot. He's like, when the student's ready, the teacher will come. Yeah. And that's that is, as biblical as it sounds, that is literally what happened to us. We were finally so ready for that opportunity. And I think Andy could see that too. It took some time. It really did. But if you're willing to do whatever it takes and make the sacrifices, like the reward is in the risk. It was so risky to do what we did.
Yeah, but putting yourself in that position, like you say, like your back was against the wall. Yeah. Right. Was that advantageous to the transformation?
Yeah, because we had no option.
Because you have like no option.
Yeah,
right?
There was nothing else we could do. It literally was either you're going to figure this out and you're going to grow, or you're going to go back.
Yep.
Like,
in business,
what option?
We call that a lot of times the gift of desperation. You give yourself the gift of desperation. Like say like you're young in business and you save up a little bit of money in the bank account, and like in our industry, moving and storage, I'm moving and storage companies, you would always need another truck, right? You never have enough trucks. So you take all the money that you have and you buy the next truck, right? But if something goes wrong, like you're screwed. But because of that, and I have done that like a number of times as I was growing my company, and my back is against the wall, like I'm working 120%. It's like their failure is not an option because we did that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So after that happening, do you remember like your first big sale? Do you remember like getting traction and having like your first like big sale and what that was like?
Man.
I remember the first bigger at the time. It was huge for the company at the time, but I remember the first big-ish sale that Andy did with you, and I remember the first one that he did with me. So she was at like $5,000 in revenue for the month. Like over the course of the month, she was at like $5,000 in revenue. And in like one phone call that her and Andy do together, Andy closes this guy on like a $5,000 package for Maria. So then Andy was proving like in one call, you can double where you're at currently, you know? Yeah. So I would say that was like her kind of turning point, because she was like, oh wow, like that was so easy. Like she just missed it, And then mine was like a roofing company or something that I had, and I knew that there was something there, but just in my like time with the company, I didn't know what direction to go in with it. So I took it to Andy and I was like, hey, I got this guy, this is where he's at, this is what he's wanting to do. And then Andy closes him on like $15,000 for like 5 event tickets or something like that. And I was like, damn, like I didn't even think of that. And then, but it's like, once you see that, we're the type of people, it's like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Yeah. So it's like, once we know like how a deal went together one time, then we can take that and then go find someone else that it works with and go like perform the same deal basically. Yep. Yeah. And we've literally done that. Like every time there's a big deal that closes in the company, it's like we're usually the first ones right after it to go close another one like just like it with somebody else. Because I mean, that's how we learned, is like whatever the people at the top are doing that's working, it's like, why would you question it? Like just go do it, because it works for them, And so that's just how we've been. It's like, oh cool, that works, boom, let's go do it.
Yeah.
So the way that we came to work together is you guys put together like a really creative package, right? So we talked on the phone a couple times, and like, I kind of told you like, hey, I'm looking to, really grow my call center. I think is like the main thing I want to do right now. Some sales training, something like that would be good. But we couldn't really figure out like exactly how we wanted to work together, like what was going to drive the needle. And then you would kind of be like, well, let me think about it. Let me get really thoughtful about, what we could do together, put together some sort of package. And what you came back with was like really creative. Like, this package included like where I got to spend some time with Andy, podcast with Andy, couple ads that we did together, and then you guys coming out here doing a training on site with my people, which has been amazing. And then also like a number of tickets to go to events. I think I got like a dozen tickets or whatever. Yeah. And you packaged this whole thing together for me. Now, is that something you saw other people doing a lot in the office, or is that something that you guys just kind of become something that you guys have started doing, and is just trying to like bundle things together and make it super interesting?
Yeah, I mean, we learned that packaging is so good because then it's like customized and tiered to you and solves your problems. And so we've seen other people do it, maybe not that exact one, but what it did was allow us to be able to become creative. And that what's really cool and different about our company and the way that we operate is we talk a lot about ownership. We talked about that a lot with your team. Andy and Jackie let us run our own business inside of the business, right? We all have our own S corps, LLCs, or whatever, and they allow you to be as creative and outside of the box as you want to, within reason of like selling a ton of Andy's time because he's stretched so thin. But they're like, do whatever it is that you want to do. If you want to go out and you want to go in stores and you want to get uncomfortable and you want to train people and you want to start getting on stages, you got to start doing the things that that kind of person would do, which means you're going to have to be creative. You're going to have to think outside of the box, and you're going to have to ask for the big money because closed mouths don't get fed. And we have this vision of like what we're trying to build within the Elliott Group. And it's like these versions of us required to do X, Y, and Z things. They have to be able to get up and go. They have to be able to put pressure on. They have to be able to help other people. And for us, like we've just gotten to the point where we know our clients so well and we understand the industry so well that it's just gotten to the point where we've just been able to create things that can just solve the problems, you know, and that's why too, sometimes it might take 2 or 3 calls, and I'm okay with that. And we can one call close too, but at the same time, for our people, we're so relational and we love our people so much. We really do. We love you. Like we love our people so much that it's like I would rather have 3 or 4 phone calls with you and create a plan, a strategic plan that's going to work best for you, than to try to create a plan that's going to work best for me. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
And one thing that I say all the time is like, because you mentioned there that we can do like whatever we want to do, which is true, we can. And I always like to say, as long as it solves the client's problem and it makes sense for the Elliott Group and it maintains the relationship, then we can do whatever we want to do. And like she said too, like we're big on relationships, and that's really how Maria and I operate, is just we always try to think like, where can we go deeper? How can we provide more value to this? And so that's why like there wasn't a rush to like figure anything out like with you, because like we knew that we were going to do something together. It was just a matter of like, what's it going to look like and when's it going to happen? You know, and so like there wasn't a need to like rush into something. There wasn't a need to like brute force, like just power our way into something or anything like that, because we met, what was that, like November or something at the moving party in Scottsdale, and then like, you know, that started the conversation, and then you guys got plugged in with one another after that, and then it just like 2 months or 3 months later, we finally agreed like, hey, this is what it's gonna look like, and then like you were happy, we were cool, like everybody's cool.
All right, so tell me this. So you guys are, this is like Kirby 2.0 right now, right?
3.0.
This is 3.0. What does Kirby 4.0 look like? What is like, you know, 3 to 5 years down the road? Like, what's your vision? Are you guys going to be on big stages yourself? And what all does that entail? What's the big goal?
I would say Maria's big goal is she does have a thing for like speaking from stage. She's actually done it a few times, and it's crazy to see because she's only done it a few times, and like the last time, like she had the whole room like in tears. It was the craziest thing. My big, and I'll let her speak more to that, my big vision, and this is literally what I told Maria like my second week with Andy, is I want to be the head of like our acquisitions department, because I know that's the direction that we're going as a company. And there's a small like backstory to that. That's what Maria and I really wanted to do. So we were big like Layla and Alex Hormozy fans because we just loved what they're doing. And we were like, we want to start an acquisitions firm, and we had no idea how to do it. We had no idea how to get started, what the process looked like nothing about it. We were just like, this is what we want to do. And then literally within a few months of us like making that declaration to one another, that's when we went to that event and met Andy. And then when I came on Andy's team, I saw it. I was like, okay, he's building this brand, he's building this foundation, and this, like, Andy wants to build $1 billion company, right? The way that he gets there isn't necessarily by selling courses and event tickets and private coaching. It's by training up other companies and getting a piece of their revenue, just like Tommy Mello's doing and all these other private equity firms. So it's like I knew that was the direction that the company was headed in, and I told Maria, I was like, this is how we do it. Like, this is how we get into acquisitions, is by leveraging the brand that Andy's put so much time into building, and him being willing enough to bring us in to like assist in that process. So like that's my big thing, is like I see us running Elliott Acquisitions. That's what we've already titled it basically, and just helping other companies grow and scale, and maybe they're not being like as much of an upfront investment to work with us, because we get the more like long-term side of it. So that's my thing.
Yeah, my vision really is to aid in that, because that's been such a passion for us, but also the onstage side of things, because I think everybody should tell their story, and we miss out, because one thing we forget is church, for example, right? The way that we learn from the Bible is through stories, and so many people are so scared to tell their story. They don't realize the kind of impact that they could have, because you need the right person at the right time to hear your story for them to go and change their life. It's a giant domino effect, a giant butterfly effect, whatever you want to call it, right? Because think about, Andy was telling the story the other day. He was saying, thinking of Ed Milet, for example, The Power of One More, right? So Ed Milet talks a lot about his dad. His dad early on was an alcoholic, super heavy alcoholic. But Ed remembers when he was like 13, sitting inside of his dad's car, and his dad was crying, right? In that moment, his dad said, Ed wanted his dad to stop drinking for forever. And his dad would say, I can't promise you that I'll be clean forever, but I can promise you that I can make it one more day. And that's where that comes from. But what Ed what he was talking about was, he said it took one guy. He's like, I don't know who the guy is, but it took one guy to talk to my dad, for my dad to make a decision to get clean, to be able to finish raising us, for me to be able to have that story, to build this brand of Power of One More. That one guy actually changed millions of people's lives through Ed, right? And so that's why stories are so important, because and why these kinds of situations, we got to share those things with people. And so I have this vision of being able to share my story on stage, because I know you're getting a couple pieces of it today, but it's so much deeper than that. And people grow through adversity, and I feel so bad for the people that don't go through adversity, like we were talking about your kids, right? Because they don't have to go through a whole lot of adversity. Adversity builds you into the person that you need to be. And looking back now, I really do believe that I went through so much of what I went through because God was creating a version that the world needed. He needed this version, and maybe it wasn't fair for my mom, maybe it wasn't fair for my siblings, maybe it wasn't fair for my grandparents, but God's intention isn't necessarily to be fair, right? We've got to go through certain things, and they're either we're going to grow through them or we're going to break down, right? They say pressure either builds diamonds or bursts pipes. And I really do believe like God was creating a diamond, and I'm not saying that to like be egotistical or anything like that. I really do believe like there's a purpose behind it. And the more people that I can get in front of, the more stages I can get in front of, I know that like my mom's story and my grandparents' story can impact millions of people's lives. Absolutely. And that's the dream.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh man, I love it. Well, you guys, this has been great. I mean, our training today was fantastic. Our people loved it. I saw some light bulbs going off out there today of people, that sell for us, they're starting to understand, the importance of like self-development and like working on their craft and like wanting to get better, not just coming in and clocking in, answering phones, and then going home. So I feel like the room was inspired today. I'm inspired today. I'm loving the time that we're spending together. Looking forward to having dinner with you guys tonight. My wife's coming as well. It's going to be a good time. But just thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
100%. Got your back for life.
Thanks. All right. That's a wrap.